On a crisp autumn evening, under the dispassionate glare of 1,000 camera flashes, a man stands at a podium. The air is thick with the scent of ozone from the lighting rigs and the collective breath of a cheering crowd. This is not just any political rally, it is a declaration. Senator JD Vance, a figure forged in the crucible of Appalachian Rust Belt disillusionment and catapulted to the heights of American power, is not just speaking as a politician. He is speaking as a penitent, a prodigal son. He announces that he has been formally received into the Catholic Church. His conversion to Catholicism, he explains, his voice steady but carrying a weight of conviction, is not a departure but a return. A return to tradition, to structure, to an ancient faith that has weathered the storms of empires and ideologies. It is, he says, a spiritual homecoming. In that moment, the personal becomes irrevocably public. Before the applause has even faded, the declaration detonates across the digital landscape. A firestorm of analysis, speculation, and raw emotion erupts on social media, in newsrooms, and across dinner tables. To his supporters, this is a profound testament to his character. They see a man seeking refuge from the chaos of modernity in the bedrock of Western civilization, a leader fortifying his political convictions with divine mandate. His journey is seen as an authentic search for truth, a courageous act in a secularizing world. They point to the intellectual rigor of Catholic social teaching, the philosophy of Aquinas, the writings of Augustine, a deep well of thought that offers answers, not just sound bites. For them, his conversion is a sign of seriousness, a signal that his political project is rooted in something more permanent than polling data. It is a fusion of temporal power and eternal truth, a welcome development in a nation they feel has lost its moral compass. But to his critics, the announcement lands with the hollow thud of a calculated maneuver. They see not a soul's journey, but a politician's chess move. The timing, the public nature of the reveal, the specific choice of faith, it all seems too convenient. Catholicism, particularly its more traditionalist expressions, has become a powerful rallying point for a certain brand of intellectual conservatism in the American culture war. It offers a pre-packaged history, a coherent worldview, and a built-in institutional network. Skeptics immediately begin to dissect the political calculus. Is this an appeal to the crucial Catholic vote in swing states? Is it a way to consolidate his credentials with social conservatives who may have been wary of his populist, less overtly religious past? Political commentators, armed with demographic data and voting patterns, argue that this is a classic case of identity alignment, a strategic branding exercise designed to signal allegiance to a specific cultural tribe. They see it not as a submission to God, but as a savvy acquisition of cultural capital. This immediate, violent split in interpretation reveals a deep chasm in modern American life. The tension is palpable, hanging in the air like the rally's fading echoes. A deeply personal journey of faith, arguably one of the most intimate experiences a human can have, is thrust into the harshest, most cynical public light. Every word is scrutinized, every motive questioned. The sacred space of conscience becomes a battlefield for political proxies. The very language of faith, grace, redemption, truth, is co-opted and contested, translated into the brutal vocabulary of power, strategy, and partisan advantage. We are left watching a man's soul being debated as if it were a piece of legislation. The event forces us to confront an unsettling reality about our own era. In a world where every action is viewed through a political lens, is there any room left for sincere belief? What does it truly mean for a personal spiritual journey to become a lightning rod for national division?
Building on that immediate, polarized reaction to Vance's announcement, we must pull back from the glare of the 24-hour news cycle and delve into the historical archives. For the collision of personal faith and public power is not a modern invention. It is a story as old as civilization itself. The conversion of a public figure has long been a potent, world-altering force. Let us travel back to a garden in Milan in the late 4th century. A brilliant, tormented intellectual named Aurelius Augustinus is weeping in despair, torn between his worldly ambitions and a profound spiritual yearning. He hears a child's voice chanting, "Tolle lege," take up and read. He opens the epistles of Paul, and in that moment, the course of his life and of Western thought is irrevocably altered. St. Augustine's intellectual and spiritual struggle, meticulously documented in his Confessions, was not a simple change of allegiance. It was the culmination of a decade-long philosophical war within himself, a rejection of Manichaeism, and an embrace of a faith that could satisfy both his heart and his formidable intellect. His conversion gave the Christian world a new language for the self, a new understanding of sin, grace, and divine sovereignty that would echo through the halls of theology, philosophy, and politics for the next 1600 years. Centuries later, in 1593, we find another leader at a spiritual crossroads, this one far more pragmatic. King Henry IV of France, a Protestant, is fighting to unite a kingdom shattered by decades of religious warfare between Catholics and Huguenots. To secure the throne and bring peace to his people, he makes a momentous decision. He formally abjures Protestantism and embraces Catholicism, famously, if perhaps apocryphally, declaring, "Paris is worth a mass." His was not a conversion born of a dark night of the soul like Augustine's, but an act of supreme political statecraft. It was a recognition that the faith of the ruler and the stability of the realm were inextricably linked. And then there is the foundational conversion of the West. Emperor Constantine, on the eve of the Battle of the Milvian Bridge in 312, seeing a vision of the cross in the sky and the words, "In this sign you will conquer." His subsequent victory and embrace of Christianity transformed it from a persecuted sect into the bedrock of the Roman Empire, merging the cross and the eagle, the church and the state, in a complex, often fraught alliance that would define the next millennium. These historical precedents are not mere trivia. They reveal the different textures and motivations of conversion, and this nuance is critical when we look at the American context, where the very definition of conversion is itself contested. For millions of American evangelicals, conversion is a singular, deeply personal, and often emotional born-again experience. It is the moment of crisis, the sinner's prayer, the personal acceptance of Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. It is a dramatic break with the past, a direct encounter with the divine that requires no intermediary, no institution. In contrast, the Catholic tradition Vance entered understands conversion as a more gradual process. It is a journey of intellectual inquiry and spiritual formation known as the rite of Christian initiation of adults that culminates in receiving the sacraments of baptism, confirmation, and the Eucharist. It is less a solitary event and more an entry into a 2,000-year-old communal body, a submission to its authority, teachings, and traditions. This theological divergence has profound political implications. When a figure like Newt Gingrich embraced Catholicism late in his career, or when Vance does so now, they are not just making a statement of personal belief. They are signaling an alignment with a particular mode of being religious in the world, one rooted in history, hierarchy, and a comprehensive social teaching that stands in stark contrast to the more individualistic and fragmented landscape of modern Protestantism. These historical patterns are not just echoes from a distant past. They are active blueprints, providing a language and a logic for how faith is understood, leveraged, and, critics would say, weaponized in the theater of contemporary American politics, perpetually blurring the sacred line between spiritual conviction and strategic alliance.
Extending that historical lens into the turbulent present, the fierce debate surrounding JD Vance's conversion compels us to ask a more fundamental and perhaps more uncomfortable question. What does conversion truly signify in our highly polarized, deeply cynical world? Is it still possible to view it as a profound internal transformation, a metanoia or change of heart, when it is immediately interpreted as a strategic change of tribe in the ongoing culture war? To find an answer, we must move beyond the headlines and into the work of those who study the mechanics of belief. We turn to academic research on the sociology of religion, which reveals a complex tapestry of human motivation. Studies from institutions like the Pew Research Center consistently show that while theological conviction is a factor, religious switching is often powerfully influenced by social forces. People change faiths because of marriage, because they move to a new community, or because they seek a group that better reflects their social and political values. The search is not just for truth, but for identity and belonging. A faith community becomes a place to feel at home, to be understood, to find reinforcement for one's worldview in a fractured society. Anthropological field notes from around the globe add another layer of complexity. In many cultures, both past and present, embracing a new faith is understood primarily as a shift in social and political alliances. It can be a tool of resistance against a colonial power, a pathway to economic opportunity, or a way to access new social networks. This research doesn't necessarily negate the sincerity of individual belief, but it forces us to recognize that faith is never practiced in a vacuum. It is always embedded in a web of social relationships, power dynamics, and cultural identities. This phenomenon has profound societal consequences, shaping everything from legal battles over religious freedom debates to the very definition of national identity. When a politician converts, they are not just adopting a new creed, they are sending a powerful signal about which community they claim, which values they champion, and implicitly which they oppose. In this context, Vance's conversion can be analyzed as a case study in what some sociologists call performative faith, belief that is expressed in a deliberately public and often combative manner, designed to signal allegiance to a particular cultural and political faction. It becomes less about the quiet contemplation of the soul and more about the loud declaration of one's position on the battlefield of the culture war. The choice of a traditionalist form of Catholicism is, in this light, a powerful symbolic act. It represents a rejection of what its adherents see as the moral relativism, individualism, and chaos of modern secular life. It is a claim to an ancient, unchanging truth in a world of flux. This fusion of faith and fury, of spiritual conviction and political combativeness, has become a defining feature of our time. It creates a feedback loop where political polarization fuels religious sorting, and religious identity, in turn, deepens political divides. The tragedy is that this dynamic erodes our collective ability to perceive, let alone respect, genuine spiritual transformation. In an era where every public declaration is immediately scanned for its strategic value, the language of faith itself becomes devalued, treated as just another tool in the political arsenal. The question then evolves beyond one man's soul. It becomes a question for all of us. In the blinding light of our political allegiances, can we ever truly see the quiet, mysterious, and deeply personal journey of another?